Hi, I'm Megan and welcome to my kitchen. In today's What's for Dinner video, I'll be sharing with you what meals we had this past week. Our dinners were easy to make, budget friendly, and delicious. So if you're looking for some weeknight meal ideas for your family, just keep watching. If you saw last week's What's for Dinner video, I mentioned that my mom and I had went to Kentucky for a couple days. This first night's dinner was in Kentucky. It was our last night out. We went to a restaurant there in town. It's like a build your own bowl place. So kind of think Chipotle, but you can get everything from like burrito bowls to Asian bowls, poke bowls, all kinds of stuff. So I got the chicken teriyaki bowl, which was rice, chicken teriyaki, pineapple, mandarin oranges, sesame seeds, green onions, all the goodies. And then my mom got chicken, rice, teriyaki, and she decided to add some corn to it, and dinner was delicious. The next day, my mom and I stopped at an Amish market on our way home. Gary had requested sourdough bread and German beef bologna. So we decided to do fried bologna sandwiches that night for dinner. Here's everything that I'm going to use. I've got this sourdough and bologna that I mentioned, and then mayo, ketchup, mustard, lettuce, tomato, some sliced American cheese, pickles, barbecue sauce, a little bit of butter, and then we picked up this pasta salad at the Amish market. It was really good. It had some kind of like Italian dressing, sun-dried tomatoes, all the goodies. So I know most of you know how to fry bologna, but just in case you don't, I'll show you real quick. So you want to take your bologna, remove the red string if it has it on there, and then I like to make 4 slices on the outside of the bologna and then a slice in the middle. That just helps the bologna from like rising up in the middle. You want to make sure you don't slice like all the way through the bologna to where you cut it into pieces, if that makes sense. I'm going to add this to my skillet. It's on between medium and medium high heat, a little bit of melted butter. I'm going to cook the bologna for a couple minutes on each side. Just depends on how brown you like your bologna. And Gary asked me if I would season the bologna, so I added some of the Kinder's barbecue blend to his bologna. That's totally optional. You do not have to do that. Now, we kind of had a genius idea. Gary had asked me to add some barbecue sauce, like with the mayonnaise to his sandwich. And I told him, I was like, wait a minute. We love, when we grill hot dogs, we love adding barbecue sauce on the hot dogs during like the last minute of cooking and letting the barbecue sauce get caramelized. And I said to Gary, why don't we try that with bologna? And he was like, yes, genius. It was delicious. I will definitely do that again. So here you can see all I did the last maybe 30 seconds or so. The bologna was cooking. I added some of that barbecue sauce and gave it a flip. And then we're going to put some American cheese on it. And then that's it. You got fried bologna. So I just assembled our sandwiches and then we had that pasta salad with it. And these bologna sandwiches, especially fried in that barbecue sauce, chef's kiss. People can hate on bologna all you want to, but you fry it up, add some, homegrown tomatoes to it. Oh, yum, 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 yum. Dinner the next night was our Sunday dinner or Sunday supper. And I'm going to blame this on someone on Facebook. They had meatloaf and had like all the sides. And I thought, you know what? It's been a long time since I've had a meatloaf dinner like that. So let's just do it. Even though it's the two of us, let's do all the sides, just scaled down a little bit. So I'm going to start out by making my meatloaf. I've shared this before on my channel. I've done my best to put out measurements. I'll put them in the description box below for you. But honestly, I just eyeball everything. So to this bowl, I'm going to add in some finely diced onion as well as some minced garlic. Next, I'm going to add in an egg and then beat that with a fork. Now, for meatloaf, you can easily double, triple this recipe. I would just suggest you doing 1 egg per 1 pound of ground beef. Now, I like to add in a little bit of ketchup to the mixture as well as some Worcestershire sauce. And if you've been with me for a while, you know, you're in your kitchen, you make your meatloaf how you like it. There's no meatloaf police. Make it how you like it. I grew up eating meatloaf with rolled oats, but I prefer to use breadcrumbs now. I know some people like to use like crushed up crackers. World is your oyster, my friend. You do you, boo. I like to add in a tiny little splash of milk and then salt and pepper, and then I give that mixture a really, really good mix. Now I'm going to add in my ground beef. I normally use like 85-15. For this, you don't want to go super, super lean because then you'll have just a really dry meatloaf. So I'm just going to place my meatloaf mixture into a greased dish, and then I'm going to make the topping. I'm using ketchup and some barbecue sauce. I added too much barbecue sauce. Usually I only use about half the amount of barbecue sauce. It just kind of spilled out on me. I'm going to add a couple dashes of Worcestershire, followed by some brown sugar, and all this is just to taste. And then I'm going to put this on top of the meatloaf mixture. This is going to go into a preheated oven. I baked it at 375 degrees tonight for about 45 minutes or so, and then you do want to let this sit for at least 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes before you serve it up. Next, I'm making some cornbread. I'm going to do a small batch because it's just Gary and I. This makes like a 6-inch cast iron skillet. I've got some buttermilk. I'm going to measure out and then add an egg. I'm going to whisk that together really well and then set that to the side. In a bowl, I'm going to add self-rising cornmeal, followed by all-purpose flour, and I'll have all of the recipes from today's video in the description box below for you, so check that out. My pa put a little bit of mayonnaise in his cornbread, so I'm going to add just about a tablespoon of that, followed by some canola oil. You could use melted butter, melted lard, melted bacon fat, whatever you want to do. So once I've got my dry mixed up really well, I'm going to add my wet to the dry. Give that a good mix, and then we are going to put it to the cast iron skillet. So in this cast iron skillet, I added some bacon grease. Again, you can do shortening, lard, but whatever kind of oil you want. And you want to put it into the oven and melt whatever fat you're using. Let that skillet get nice and hot, and then we're going to add the mixture to that hot skillet. Be careful. Again, this is hot. I speak from experience. I've burned my hand, time or two on cast iron. But we're going to put that into a preheated oven. It was set at 400 degrees and bake it. I mean, it depends on if you're doing like a 6-inch or a 9-inch, but I would check it after 18 minutes. Once a toothpick is inserted into the center of it and it comes out clean, it's done. I had about 3/4 of a 15-ounce can of sauerkraut in the fridge that I needed to use up, so I decided to do some kraut and wieners. In this back skillet here, I've got a little bit of butter. This is on medium-high heat. Once the butter's melted, I added in some sliced hot dogs. You can do sliced kielbasa, sliced smoked sausage, whatever you want. But I just cooked the hot dogs for a couple minutes until they were brown. Added in the drained sauerkraut, and then you can add in a little bit of salt and pepper if you want, a little pinch of brown sugar, and then just cook that for another maybe 10 minutes on medium heat until the sauerkraut starts to get golden brown. I tried a new recipe for creamed corn. In this skillet, this is cast iron. You can use whatever kind of skillet you want. I've got a little bit of butter that has melted. This is on medium heat. I'm going to add in a bag of frozen corn. Give that a stir, and I cooked that for just a couple minutes. Then I'm going to add in some flour. Give that a stir, and then cook the flour for a minute or two to get that raw flour taste out. At this point, I'm going to add in some salt and pepper. I'm going to add in some evaporated milk. And to be honest, I can't remember off the top of my head if the recipe called for evaporated milk or regular milk, but either one's fine. And then I'm going to add in some heavy whipping cream. I'm going to give that a stir. And then the recipe said to bring this to a boil and reduce it to a simmer. But I could tell that it was already a little thicker than what I wanted, so I just added in some water. Gave that a stir, added in a pinch of sugar, and then again brought it back up to a boil, reduced it to a simmer. And you want to cook this until the corn becomes tender and it gets thick to your liking. Now, while that's going, I wanted some mashed potatoes. I have this little cup of instant mashed potatoes, so I just cooked that up according to the package instructions. And then once the corn was done to my liking, I did take an immersion blender and just kind of blend up some of the corn. That's optional. You don't have to do that. But I'd give it a taste right before serving. Adjust the seasonings to your taste, and this is what it looked like when it was done. Here's that little cup of instant potatoes. I did just a tiny little splash of that evaporated milk to loosen it up and added a little pepper. Now, also, I made some crock pot macaroni and cheese. I've shared this so many times before on my channel. I first saw it on Kristen Stepp's channel years ago, and I make it like pretty much every family occasion and all the time. It is a delicious mac and cheese, but because it was just Gary and I quartered the recipe this time. Here's one of the tomatoes we got from the Amish market. I just sliced it up. I don't think it was like homegrown completely because tomatoes aren't in season right now, but it was a lot better than what you get in the grocery store. So I don't know if maybe they were hot house or what, but it was delicious nonetheless. All right, here are the plates. We got a little bit of everything. Everything was so delicious. This was such a comforting meal and took me back to my childhood. For dinner the next night, we did baked potatoes and a layered salad. So I decided to do the potatoes in the air fryer. I've got 2 russet potatoes here. I washed them really well. I'm going to take a fork and pierce them. I know some people say you don't have to do this. If you don't want to pierce your potatoes, don't. Now I'm going to take some olive oil and rub all over the potatoes. This helps them get kind of crispy on the outside. I'm going to take some kosher salt and season both sides of the potatoes along with some pepper. And then these are going to go into the air fryer basket and cook at 400 degrees. I cooked them for 20 minutes, gave them a flip, cooked them for another 20 minutes or so. Just depends on how big your potatoes are. You want to cook them until a knife inserted into the center you can, I don't know how to explain it, but you can tell when the knife hits smooth potato versus hard potato. And then to go along with this, I made like a 7-layer salad. I filmed that as part of an upcoming Easter video, so keep an eye out for that if you'd like to see how I made it. And yeah, we just loaded up the potatoes, did some butter, sour cream, cheese, bacon, green onions, and then a little drizzle of ranch. So yummy. For dinner the next night, I made a family favorite. I made creamy Italian chicken. I've shared this many times before on my channel. I will link the video in the description box below for you. It's super easy. Just chicken breast, dry ranch, not ranch, Italian dressing mix, cream cheese, cream of chicken soup, and then you can cook it on low or high until the chicken is at least 165 degrees internal temperature and is tender. Some people shred it. I prefer to remove the chicken and dice it and add it back to the crock pot. And then I prefer this over rice, so I cooked up some white rice in the rice cooker with a little bit of chicken bouillon mixed with the water. And then Gary likes this with pasta, so I just did like some of the, I think it's the Barilla Rotini microwave pasta, and mix that together. And yeah, like I said, family favorite. This is so delicious. Dinner the next night was off a meal plan, but it just sounded good to me. I did a quick baked spaghetti. I've shared different variations before on my channel. I just kept it simple tonight. Cooked up a little bit of ground turkey with some diced onions, garlic, added a can of the ragu kettle marinara sauce, and then doctored it up, little salt, pepper, Italian seasoning, a little tiny pinch of sugar, and then I added in some spaghetti noodles, just cooked it in some salted water according to the package instructions. I added this to a greased 9x9, and then, yes, you are seeing this right, I added just good old sliced American cheese. They used to serve it that way to us in school and at daycare, and somebody and I were talking about it on Instagram a couple weeks or so ago, and since then it's been on my mind. So I just place the American cheese on top. You could do shredded mozzarella, shredded cheddar, whatever you want. And I just popped it into a 350-degree oven and baked it for about 15 minutes until the cheese was melted. And I had a brain fart this night, forgot to take a picture of it when it was done, but looks exactly the same, just the cheese is melted. I made some quick side salads, lettuce, bacon, cheese, carrots, cucumber, tomato, grapes, and then Gary had some sliced the mini red bell peppers. And then cleaning out the freezer, I had 2 slices of this cheese garlic toast, 2 breadsticks, so I just baked them both up in the oven. And these are the plates. We've got the spaghetti, the salads, and the bread. I had ranch on my salad. Gary had Thousand Island. Yummy. For the last dinner in this week's video, I made a recipe called, quote, the best burgers ever. I put that in quotes because I'm not necessarily saying I agree with that. That's just the name of the recipe. I have made this before. I think I've made this before on my channel. It's just been a while. But I know I've made this recipe a few times over the years, and we enjoy it. I'm going to start out by making the sauce for it. You can check the recipe link in the description box below for the exact measurements. I've got ketchup, seasoned salt, relish, mayonnaise, Worcestershire sauce, and then I decided to add in a little pinch of sugar. I'm going to mix everything until it's well combined, and then I would recommend making this at least 30 minutes in advance. That way all the flavors meld together, but you can even make it the day before if you would prefer to do that. For this side, I'm also going to get that started because I want that to hang out in the fridge for a little bit. I'm making Donna's corn salad. Donna is my mom's friend, and this is her quote-unquote recipe. I say quote-unquote recipe because it's not really a recipe. She just gave ingredients and not amounts, but I'll put that in the description box below for you. So I'm going to take a can of shoe peg corn, drain it. I'm going to add in some mayonnaise, garlic powder. Donna uses garlic salt, but I prefer prefer to use garlic powder, you use your preference. I'm going to dice up some cucumber, and then I have some of those tomatoes we got from the Amish market that I'm going to dice up. So I just mixed everything. For that 1 can of sheephead corn, I think I added like a couple tablespoons of the mayonnaise. You could just eyeball the vegetables. And then I forgot to show you, but I also added in some green onions. So just gave that a mix, popped it into the refrigerator, and allow it to chill again for about 30 minutes before you serve it. Now I'm going to make the burgers. Oh, real quick, I did also add some salt and pepper into the corn salad. So to this bowl, I'm going to add in a pound of ground beef, and I am breaking a rule here. I usually believe that hamburgers should just be pattied out meat, salt and pepper on the grill. That's pretty much it. To me, if you add stuff to the hamburger, it's basically a meatloaf. But I'm breaking that rule with this recipe because it's actually really good. So I'm going to add in some barbecue sauce to the ground beef, and I have the recipe, by the way. I'm going to add in some seasoned salt, black pepper, followed by onion powder. The recipe didn't call for garlic powder, but I had it out making the corn salad, so I just added a little bit in, figured it wouldn't hurt. And then we're going to add in some shredded Colby Jack cheese. You could use the shredded cheese of your choice. So you want to mix that together, but be careful not to over mix it. And then halved, this recipe makes 4 patties, so I just divided the mixture into 4, used my finger to create an indent in the middle, and then it's time to cook these up. I decided to cook these using the little Cuisinart indoor grill that I have, not sponsored by the way. I set this to 400 degrees and then cooked the hamburgers for maybe 5 or 6 minutes per side. Now, because you've got the barbecue sauce and the cheese in there, these patties are pretty moist. The recipe suggests not cooking these on like an outdoor grill where there's a lot of space in between the lines because they can fall apart. So stick with something like this that doesn't have a lot of space between, or on top of the skillet, in a skillet on top of the stove. Now, once these were done, I did add a slice of American cheese to Gary's hamburger, and these burgers are so yummy. To serve these up, just toasted up a bun, added the burger, some of that sauce, and then sliced tomato and pickle on mine. I did lettuce, pickle, tomato, and the sauce on Gary's, and then we have the corn salad. Yummy, yummy little dinner. All right, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video, got some new dinner ideas to try from it. If you did like it, hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. Hope you have a great rest of the day. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.